because I had danced before I received a regime of training, I really had specific ideas about what dance was. And so I had a strong point of view, really strong ideas, because I was playing around long before I had my first training. And so I always wanted to do my own thing. I always wanted to choreograph, because when I was a little kid, I was making dances in the living room, in the garage, and showing my parents, and so that was always a part of me. And so I knew one day that I would have my own restaurant, and that happened in 1982 with Lines. Dancing was something that I always loved to do. When I was in high school and I had to make a choice about what I was going to do for a long time and enjoy, that was the choice that I made, was dance. After working with a lot of companies all over the world, I think there came a period where I was with some companies and I became unruly, dissatisfied with playing Simon Says and posing around. And I really wanted to get into a depth in dance that up until that time had been missing from my experience of working with other people. I wanted to plummet into a dialogue that was deeper than just skill, execution, and showmanship. And so I wanted to start to explore some of my own ideas that I had. There comes a period when you're young, you show off. You're blind really to whatever is around you, but then there comes a period where you become older and the idea of performing is kind of silly because you really want to be somewhere in an experience. You want to have dialogue with something that's larger than you and participate in it, as opposed to show off to or entertain people. So I think that that became my preoccupation.
This goes down to come up.
When I left New York, I came here, and the first thing I did was start to teach classes. And they were packed with amazing dancers. And I had too much free time. And so I just started building dances right away. I just started saying, let's do this, let's work after class, and it just built momentum. And then the word got out, and then it attracted more people, and I was invited to ballet companies all over the world to teach. And that's how the people really began to know about me, was through the classes. And then word of the choreography got out, and I would be asked to choreograph places, and that's really how it started. It was word of mouth. I think in the choreography and in the worlds that we create at Lines, what I'm really looking for is truth. And that takes a lot of courage, from an artist to not hide behind their technique, but to be brave. It's almost like being the sacrifice, that the dancer is really the hero and the heroine. It's the heroic symbol. And so you are exposed and you are willing to give your life to the work. Not execute the work, not look good in the work, but to give it up to the work. So that in the relationship where we see a mother and child and there's honesty and there's love there and there's nurturing, there's a truth in that relationship. In the same things in the relationships of any kind of dance, which is the communication of ideas, we want it to be living truth. Just living truth, so that anyone off the street can come in, they can smell it, they can see it, they can taste it, and they can recognize other things in it. Because if we go to a mountain, it speaks to us. If we see someone crying, it speaks to us. If we see dance, dance, it's so universal. If we see that and it's real and the person is in it, it speaks to us. Most people, when they go to dance, they feel insecure because they think, concert dance, they think, I don't understand it. What does it mean? You know, and I say, just watch it. Look at it like meeting people. You know, is this person honest? What is the motivation here? You know, let it talk to you. You know, some of it is trivial. Some of it is cocktail conversation. Some of it is deep, but it is the communication of ideas. And so I think that my obsession is that the communication be clear and that it rings with truth. What people think of when they think of ballet is they think of a particular style at a period in history. They think of 17th century Europe and Romanticism. And so they think that style is ballet. Ballet is a science of movement. So it's not a style, and most people think of it as a style. It's language that can be exploited millions of different ways. And so the way that people think the definition is wrong. It is a language, a science of movement, not a style. So it can be done tons of ways. Contemporary means present. And so what Petipa did when he was creating Swan Lake at that time was contemporary. Now it's considered classic. And what we're doing now is contemporary because it's happening right now. I think I also want to say that people also think of ballet as white, which is another mistake, because there can be no cultural possession or racial possession of ideas. These are ideas, you know, and these are ideas that have been handed down like a baton. Now, what happened is, you know, people usually go back to Egypt and they talk about, you know, dance as much as recorded from the hieroglyphs. But because this dance had royal patronage, and because it was codified in France, and because it was glorified in Russia, that's the stigma that people put on it, that's what it is. But that was just a short period of its history. This stuff is ancient. It's ancient. People want to take a portion of it and say this is what it is. No, it's huge. It's much older than that period. And I think I like to stay ancient and new as much as possible. And that's why the word truth always rings a bell with me, because truth, no matter how many times you hear it, is ancient and new. That this goes down to come up, that this goes in to come out, that this goes around to come through. I don't see the logic of it, just like we were talking in the adagio. Here it just kind of goes. And it has sense in it, that this goes down to come out, that this goes through to come over. And that's what I don't see. Can I take a look at that, please? When I'm looking for a dancer to work with the company, I always keep initially in the mind, because of the training, I think of proportion, because you really want to be able to visually see, like if I was going to write words, I would want the words to be legible and clear so that you would understand what was being communicated. So that there's certain kinds of bodies that make that clear. They make line and the language clear. But above that, but that is a subordinate that stays in my mind, but above that is, because what we're really looking at on stage is character. And so I look for people who are strong-willed and sensitive, who have a sense of humor, who are able to forget themselves, who have brilliant minds, a strong technique so that they're not obsessed with that they can go on to the next thing. I look for people who are generous to a fault, because great artists have to be incredible givers in the sense of love and generosity, that there's a selflessness to their commitment, that they love what they do, that they can laugh at themselves. And so what this all boils down to is I'm looking for people with character, not parrots who want to play Simon Says, not people who want to reiterate the book, but people who bring their experience to something, their life's experience, and character, bottom line.
I got involved 13 seasons ago. I came from Chicago to study in Berkeley with Evelyn Short. She's a Vaganova. I studied Vaganova in Chicago at Ruth Page. I then discovered Alonzo, and I started coming to his classes rather than going to her classes, and that's how I discovered him. In the meantime, I went away, to dance other places in Canada, in New York, and then I came back here, and I knew that I wanted to finish and start my career with him. I would go to him because I felt like there was something there for me, and now I think it's because of the trust factor, the spiritual factor, the givingness, of the whole company, not just of Alonzo, but of the whole organization, It's just oneness, instead of all these entities and people grabbing and grasping at each other, I enjoy every aspect. I do. Sometimes I dance in pain and I think about, okay, why am I doing this? What am I doing? And then I think about the joy that it gives me. I could have debt, I could, have all these other problems. So when I come to rehearse, when I come here, I feel fine. It just heals everything, So, and I think that's what it is. It's healing. It's really healing. I can be injured, but still keep going, A goal for me in the future. I don't really have a goal. I just want to end my career happy, knowing that I've danced to fulfill something inside of myself and to offer something to the company and to offer something to the community. That would be a goal, I guess, but I feel like I'm doing that now, so.
Two years ago, I came to do the summer intensive, and after that, Alonzo asked me to apprentice with the company for a year, and this is my first year as a full company member. It's a much more supportive environment than I'm accustomed to. It's all about how you work. It's not so much hung up on what you feel you deserve or how you think of other people as dancers talent-wise or anything like that. It's all about how you work. It's so different from any other company I've ever seen. It's so supportive.
This is my 5th season with the company. I had taken a year off from dancing when I was about 23 and decided to get back into it, and had auditioned like 5 or 6 places and couldn't get a job because of my height. So a friend of mine knew about Alonzo, and she was like, oh, he loves tall women, so I came down and got a job immediately. So there are like 6 tall women here, which is great. So I'm not a pariah size-wise. I think it's a small company and it's really intimate, so we get a lot of interaction with Alonzo and with each other, and it really is a family. A lot of companies say that they're family, but we really are. We have a very family dynamic, and we're together all the time, and we all get to dance a lot, which is great. I think the goal is just always pushing myself harder and just getting stronger and more artistic, and I don't think I have a specific goal in mind, but just to continue growing as an artist.
That's nice. I like that. Oh, that's good, Marina. Yeah, I like that. I like that too. That's great. I think to bring out generosity in people is a spiritual act. If when we have seen acts of kindness, they move us. When we look at people's lives who've overcome obstacles, we're moved by them. We've had the examples of Gandhi, Christ, Helen Keller. I mean, these are moving lives. And so when I look at people on stage and they're moving, I want those lives to move us as well. So when we're moved by people, those people usually have conviction. They believe in what they're doing. If the whole world says you're wrong, they go against the world. And so that same attitude, that same conviction is what I insist on in the dancers. And when you see that, you're moved. Someone standing with a mind that's not split, but it's single purpose. A single purpose mind with a single intention, not split, not self-conscious, not worried about how they look or what other people think, but with a mission and an intention like an arrow shot towards a bullseye is an incredibly powerful thing to see. And so that kind of focus and that kind of concentration and that kind of commitment, I insist upon. And so I think that's what registers in the performances. I think that when we see any art, that the surface of it, meaning the look of it, the appearance, whether it's a painting and it's the colors, whether it's a dance and it's the bodies or the scene, whether it's theater and it's the play, that is a come on. It's a dinner bell that's saying, come, I want you to listen to something. And so when we hear the dinner bell, we don't just say, oh, listen to the bell, listen. We want to go eat, right? Or we don't want to be obsessed just with the colors, but that is an initial saying, come here, because there's something that's being communicated here. Now, in terms of spirituality, most people in the world, there's a melancholy about their lives. There's something that's missing. No matter what they acquire, you know, whether the dream was $1 million or this spouse or this job placement or this status, I think it's going to make me happy, right? Once they get it, inevitably, they say it's fun for a while and then it pales. This new car, the next best garment, you know, whatever it is, so that there's always that something that's missing. No matter how perfect the relationship, no matter how perfect the desire has been met, there's a period where it's a blast and then it pales. And so that something that's missing is spirit. It's inevitable. When art began, it was always addressing that. When I'm working with dance, I'm not really interested that the dancers show themselves. I know I've used this phrase 1,000,000 times, but when the vessel is empty, the spirit can enter. What we're moved by when we look at mountains isn't just the shape of the mountains. There's something that's animating the power of those mountains that speaks a message to us about power, you know, about magnanimity, about eternity. That's what an ocean, when we see it go to the horizon, when a sky, those are addressing eternity. Those same ideas are in ballet. Eternity, you know, a non-stop line that goes on forever. Things that people think of as steps, they're addressing ideas of evolution, revolution, and power. And so it's all integrated. It's a mistake when people think that ballet is some bauble that was just created in some French court that grew, that was, had its germ in Italy, it's a bunk. That education is nothing but a lie. This is something that began when the cavemen were painting on the walls. Dance was there. And so this whole and I'm saying this to say that the universal principles that govern the cosmos, if something has truth in it, they're connected to those principles. And so those principles are also in dance. A lot of people don't understand that, a lot of people don't teach it, but they're there. Those same principles are there. The same principles that informed Copernicus and Pythagoras, they're right in ballet. Same ideas, taken into form. And so when we think about spirit, we know that these bodies, we're more than the body. If a body was lifeless and we stuffed it with good, nutritious food, it's not going to bring the body back. So what we're really seeing when we're seeing a body move is we're seeing it animated by life force. And that's a fascinating thing to see. And the things that the dancer brings to mind, someone in control, someone with power, someone with poise, all the things that are inherent parts of our nature, our higher nature anyway. So I think that art and spirit really can't be separate, because so often art is revealing to us what is behind the appearance. I think it's important that when people see art, that they possess it, that they don't look for someone else to tell them what's right or what's wrong or what's true or what's not. I think that someone can watch a work of art, a dance, whatever it is, a novel, a person's life, and the author can say, this is what I'm doing, and someone else can say, no, it's not. This is actually what you're doing. I think people have the right to do that. The thing about art when it's wonderful is that it yields many meanings. It's not just one idea, because it's like a sunset. We go to it, some people will just see this perfect circle and the straight line falling form. Some people will see color, some people will see metaphor, the end of a day. There's so many meanings to things. So I think when people see work, they should possess it in the same way that they meet people and choose their spouses. I also think that everybody who is really involved in anything is an artist. I think that everyone committed even to whatever it is, raising children, agriculture, growing crops, that everyone is some kind of artist. And I think that's important to get out there, that this idea of exclusivity and specialness, it's a bunch of crap. It's really about the knowledge of how things are made and done. And that it's chiefly a life of service. Often people have this idea that it's glamorous, but it's really about surrender and giving, bottom line. And searching for a decision that was inevitable, where it couldn't have been any other decision. It's not about what I like, but it's about what it should be, to make this clear. What we would want in the art of government. We would want our politicians to make choices that didn't reflect their being reelected, but that were really with the concern of the people. You understand what I'm saying? So in that same way, art is like it's an intellectual virtue, because it's about making choices where there could be no others. Beethoven used to say, "I don't write what I want to write. I write what I should write." And back to that idea of people's take on what things are, Chopin used to say, "I can't wait till Liszt sees this. I'm dying to see what he'll do with it." That it's really ideas. To tell you the truth, I really don't think about what other people will think. I think that For the dancers that I work with, I feel a responsibility that their art grows, that when they're under my leadership or working for me, that while they're working, that I have a responsibility that as artists, they continue to wax, that they are not defined by any one way of working or one way of being, but they're broad and deep. That's important to me. And I think that for myself, more and better is my obsession. Being trained as a dancer, there's two words that we are obsessed with for the rest of our lives, and that's more and better. And they just will be with us, that whatever we do, we want to do more and we want to do better. And that if I intend to create a horse, that I make a horse.
Musonya tapasu